Good evening and welcome to Target Family Night at Millennium Stage. Please give a warm welcome to the president of the Mikvah Challenge, Brian Brady.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Bienvenidos. This is the first ever Soapbox Nation performance from the Kennedy Center. Pretty fabulous. A round of applause for you guys for coming out today. Thank you. I am the president of the Mikvah Challenge, and we are named for Abner and Zoe Mikvah. And our mission is to empower young people to be informed, active citizens. We work with over 20,000 young people across the country, and our partner in this effort is the fabulous team from Facebook Education's Department. And we both strongly believe in the power of youth voice and youth leaders to transform communities, transform schools, and transform our country. And Soapbox Nation came out of a partnership where we decided to elevate and shine a spotlight on the voices of young people around the country. So over 5,000 young people gave 2-minute call to action speeches from all over the country. And they competed in local competitions and they submitted videos online. And so the 12 winners that you'll see tonight have all won local competitions or all have won the video competition. And the issues I think you will find fascinating, the stories they have to tell powerful, and the information they have to share will move you, I think, to act. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker of the night from Chicago, Ruby Ryder, a rising sophomore in high school.
Rape. A word the majority of you feel uncomfortable hearing. Whether it be when reading through an article or hearing a news story on the news about a woman being sexually abused, you feel shivers up your back. Many feel so uncomfortable, yet most find it acceptable to joke about a woman's jurisdiction of her own body being taken away from her. You're probably thinking in your head right now that I'm wrong, that you would never joke about such a serious topic. But the reality is that if I had $1 for every time I have heard a classmate of mine joke about or perpetuate rape culture, I would be as rich as our president, who coincidentally aids in the maintenance of such a reprehensible culture. We live in a world where a post-raped, unconscious woman's body becomes a viral meme on Twitter. Jada, a 16-year-old girl, was subjected to this horrific action as a result of our society not doing enough to explain that these types of situations would not occur if schools educated their students about rape culture. If we shared statistics about rape in high school and amongst teenagers in general, these situations would not escalate. Now, did you know that 58% of 7th to 12th graders experience sexual harassment? Or that 1 in 5 high school girls say they've been sexually assaulted at school? Or how about the fact that 60% of high school boys find it acceptable to force sex on a girl in some circumstances? These statistics may be surprising and outrageous to some, though if an individual was genuinely aware of the rape culture that exists in the average high school environment, these statistics would not even faze you. Because whether you admit it or not, locker room jokes and harmless comments that a girl takes too serious, both are which most often about a teenage girl's appearance, are unsurprisingly not funny. They hurt and they severely damage and destroy a girl's self-esteem. The range of these comments stems to far off places. It could be a simple critique on what a girl's wearing, or it can go as far as telling a girl she isn't pretty or hot because her butt isn't big. It even goes as far as a young girl having to smile through a boy grabbing her butt, then proceeding to say it isn't as nice as her best friend's. Side note, that girl was me. And let me tell you, words cannot describe the feeling of being violated in this way, of feeling helpless and powerless because a 15-year-old boy grew up in a society where disrespecting a girl is a social norm. But the thing is, it isn't normal for a young girl already struggling with comparing herself to size 059 models she sees on Instagram to feel as though she has no power nor control over her own body. One of the worst things about rape culture in high school is that according to students, girls who are developed and pretty are the likeliest targets. And to make matters worse, these obscene remarks that we all witness on the daily basis is sexual harassment. Any type of unwanted remark or comment is defined as sexual harassment and can lead to charges being pressed against the perpetrator in the future. This is not how our world should be. It's as simple as that. Because the systemic sexism is not only aiding in the validation of these condescending and disturbing comments, but is aiding in the increase in mental health issues. From depression to anxiety, rape culture in high school is creating an even larger epidemic and contributing to more and more girls feeling forlorn. So this is what I propose. Next time you or someone else contributes to this sexism or perpetuates rape culture, call it out. It really is that simple. We need to address this issue head on and confront the individuals who find it acceptable to make a girl feel defenseless. Secondly, we must defend these individuals who are subjected to this culture. Be empathetic and even report these comments to your school administration. Do not be scared. Do not feel as though you are telling on a friend. Because let me tell you one last thing. These situations escalate. 93% of teenage rapists are known to the victim. So next time you hear a mere and harmless locker room comment that you think a girl takes too serious now, realize that it can become a serious and life-changing crime in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ruby. Now, please welcome to the stage our next Soapbox Nation winner, a recent graduate from right here in Washington, D.C., Volante Chambers.
In 1852, Frederick Douglass, one of our nation's most prominent black soldiers, gave a speech on the gave a speech on what the 4th of July means to the Negro. In it, he states, at a time like this, scorching irony and convincing arguments is needed. And ladies and gentlemen, that is exactly what I intend to do today. The Chocolate City. My city no longer tastes like chocolate. Since the 1970s, the African American and other minorities have been on a 35% decline, and here's why. The average rent for a one-bedroom in the Washington district is $1,800. For a two-bedroom, it's $24, and for a three-bedroom, it's $2,800. Now stay with me. Try to imagine living with 6 people, being my 4 younger siblings, my single mother, and myself. It's living on government assistance, Section 8. Imagine living place to place, and you finally find a place you can call home. I'm just starting to settle into my community, and all of a sudden I get a note on the door saying that in 1 year, my whole community will be demolished. Wow, how that news hit me. The thought of having your home ripped from underneath you is terrifying. What would I do? What would happen to my family? I thought I had more time. The day is now January 10th, and the new development is in the back of my mind. And as I make my way home from school like any other day, I notice it. 1, 2, 3, 4. There were 4 moving trucks on my street. The time is now February, and gates are being put up where the now vacant buildings are. A community that housed 700 tenants has been reduced to 200 in as less as 3 months. Wow. Just let that sink in. Gentrification is destroying communities. I'm living proof. When I leave here today, I'm not sure if the next moving truck I see on my street will be for me and my family. I'm a 19-year-old African-American male working 2 jobs to help support my mother and younger siblings. Nor my mother or myself have the funds to afford market rent. So where does that leave me? Stuck in the dilemma I'm facing now. Affordable housing is a necessity, not only for Washington, D.C., but for all the United States. And I ask you to stand up, speak out, and be heard. Affordable housing is a necessity. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Volante. Next up to the Soapbox Nation stage, a rising high school freshman from Madison, Wisconsin, Liliana Sims.
Hello. I usually don't use mic stands, so I'm not going to. Okay. Hi, I'm Liliana Sims, like they said, and my speech is called Don't Touch My Hair. Don't touch my hair. Don't touch my crown, my mane, my personal journey. I don't think you guys understand how important our hair is to us. When my hair looks bad, I feel bad. And when my hair looks good, I feel good. Hair may be just attached to our heads, but to us, it's more than that. To us, it's attached to our souls. Our hair isn't just something to peruse about any time that you feel like it. Do you think I like your hands all over my head? Let me answer that for you. No. I am being what us humans call considerate, but I'm tired of being considerate. It's time to tell y'all, don't touch my hair. I think popular artist Solange said it best. They don't understand what it means to me, where we've been to know, where we chose to go. And I'm sorry to say, but you definitely don't understand. Black women constantly struggle with hair acceptance. Yes, that is a real thing. Hair acceptance. We don't feel comfortable in our own hair. I mean, from the beginning of time, we were taught to have stick straight hair to be accepted. We were taught that straight hair was pretty and curls were messy. Think back to the 60s when women all over this country were getting perms to show that they could assimilate to white people's culture. You definitely don't understand when Zendaya's dreadlocks are accused of smelling like weed by the media. So now, suddenly, dreadlocks are now affiliated with potheads. When again, from the beginning of time, dreadlocks were used by many different cultures as a sign of strength and power. I refuse to believe you guys respect us when you treat us like dogs. I'm not a pet, so don't pet me. Even if you ask, it is still considered disrespectful. Have you never seen hair like mine before, or what? What makes it even more upsetting is the fact that this isn't a recent thing. This has been happening for years. People just coming up and touching other people's hair without warning is not new. And it's not just the act of touching either. It's the comments that go along with it. I don't like being called a poodle. I sure don't like being called poofy, and I don't like being called fluffy either. So, what if every woman that you went up to one of you and did the exact same thing? Oh my gosh, can I touch your hair? It looks so straight and spaghetti noodle-like. Don't act like you wouldn't be hurt after a while, because those comments really have an effect, whether you realize it or not. So just stop. It's old, it's annoying, and it's hurtful. To end, putting your hands all through my carefully styled work of art is betrayal to me. My hair is my hair, mine only. Don't touch my hair. Thank you.
Thank you, Liliana. Next up on the Soapbox Nation stage, from Anaheim, California, a recent high school graduate, Alyssa Torres.
Imagine a little girl being born to a mother who's fresh out of high school and the only thing on her mind is when she's gonna get her next fix. As the little girl is getting older, she's beat, starved, and raped by her own family because she looks different, because her skin isn't light enough or her hair isn't straight enough like her other brothers and sisters. This little girl is now 4 years old and she's waking up to her little brother in the bed beside him. His body is cold and still. Blue stuff is coming out of his nose. She runs to her grandmother screaming and crying. Her grandmother then slaps her in the face and yells, "You murderer, you killed your little brother." CPS and the police arrive, and the little girl and her remaining siblings are now placed into foster care. When I get older, I want to be a motivational speaker and an author, and I want to speak towards foster youth because I'm that little girl. I'm that little girl that was beat, starved, and raped by her own family because I looked different. Sorry. I have not been in a stable home nor school since then. I've been into 14 different foster homes and 5 different group homes, all bringing different experiences. Foster home is intended to provide temporary care for kids who cannot remain with their biological family due to abuse, neglect, or abandonment. When you become a foster parent, you're vowing to take a child out of a traumatic experience and trying to give them a better life. Meanwhile, all the homes that I've been in, every family has let me know that I was not their kid and that I did not belong. And the only thing they were worried about is when they'd get their next check for me. Growing up in the foster care system has probably been one of the toughest things I've ever had to go through. Going home every single day, not knowing whether or not my home would still be my home, if my school would still be my school, or if my clothes and my property would be damaged by the other girls. The hardest part about being in the system is not being able to see my little brother. My little brother is my best friend, and it sucks that I have to go through social workers and court just to be able to see my own blood every few months. I'm not sharing my story with you guys so you guys can feel sorry for me. I'm not looking for your sympathy because I've obviously done perfectly fine on my own. I'm trying to get you guys to understand not to be so quick to judge somebody. A lot of people assume that I'm stuck up or that I have an attitude problem because I usually just keep to myself. But growing up in the system, I've had to teach myself not to get too attached to a person, place because I never know when I'd have to pack up and move again. Imagine waking up in the morning and you're told to pack your stuff. You're going to a whole new city and starting over at a whole new school every few months. How would you feel? Because that was my life. No one should have to feel that way, not knowing what's going to happen next. Kids in our generation are so evil. We're so quick to judge somebody because they don't look like us or they're not up with the latest fashion trends or their shoe game isn't up to par. But when you're in foster care, you only get $50 a month. And we all know $50 is not going to get us anything. People around us could be in foster care and we wouldn't even know because we're too scared to speak up, because we feel embarrassed or we feel like nobody understands. But I understand. Adults think that kids are in foster care because they have behavioral problems, but that's not the case at all. Kids that are in the system experience a lot of trauma, and it affects them emotionally and later on causes them to have behavioral problems. They end up in jail or homeless, and even some committing suicide because they're not getting the right help. But every single one of you can help change that. Because you're now aware. You've now heard from somebody who's actually been through it. You've heard from somebody who's lived through this. I'm 18 years old, and this has been my life since I was 4. I propose that we start programs at school specifically for foster youth so they can communicate and associate with a lot of other kids that are going through similar situations and they don't feel alone. Kids, you can go home and talk to your parents about becoming foster parents, and adults, you guys can also look into becoming foster parents and giving a kid like me a better life. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please show your support for Alyssa Torres. Next up on the Soapbox Nation stage, a rising junior from Atlanta, Georgia, Ellie Kurlander.
In kindergarten, we learn that it's impossible to fit a square peg into a round hole. Then tell me why our public schools are doing exactly this to their students. Today, I have the privilege of attending a private school that embraces my strengths and conforms to my needs. But that was not always the case. In my public elementary school, I didn't excel in math or science. And because of this, I was placed into the lowest performing groups for all of my classes, even the ones I excelled in. I loved to paint, create short stories, write poetry. But my 4th grade teacher told me that what I loved was not important. I was a square peg stuck inside of a round hole. This is my story, but similar stories pour out too frequently from the lips of students who hear the message that their passions are worthless. 20% of teens today in the US alone do not complete high school. The students who stay in school still drop out mentally because they do not see the value of what they're learning. Something needs to change because this is hurting our students and our economy. The cost of young people dropping out of school adds up to nearly $20 billion. Money spent on crime prevention, welfare programs, unemployment programs could be money better spent improving the quality and curriculum of our public schools. So how might we engage our students more in learning so they can see their worth, rather than feel obligated to conform to the cookie-cutter narrative of success? The Jacob K. Javits Gifted and Talented Students Education Program offers one solution. The Javits program allows students of all learning abilities to be included in gifted programs. Now, there are many ideas of what gifted programs should and shouldn't be, but for the most part, they require students who excel in multiple subjects to come together and solve real-world problems. This style of problem-based learning allows all students to believe that they do not have to excel in every subject to contribute impactfully within a learning environment. Schools should embrace the mindset that one size does not fit all when it comes to education. Gifted programs should become accessible for all students because each student is gifted to some extent. But depending on their passions, some gifts are prioritized over others within schools. In gifted programs and in life, we need students who excel in math, but we also need students who excel in art, humanities, creative writing, communication. The list goes on. There should not be one fixed mindset of what success looks like within schools, because when we focus on that cookie-cutter narrative, we are failing our students. What I want to leave you with today is this: students are not all alike. We should stop assuming that one model of education fits the spectrum of student ability. Instead, we should embrace the individuality of the puzzle pieces that come together to form the complete picture. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellie Kurlander. Next up to the Soapbox Nation stage, please welcome rising 8th grader Alice Gardner from Kennesaw, Georgia.
See if I can actually adjust this. Okay. I don't know. Okay. Every day, an immense and unhealthy amount of pressure is being put on young, developing minds to be perfect, have perfect bodies, perfect grades, and all around a perfect life. You see, the pressure being put on kids to have perfect bodies can lead them to developing many problems, such as eating disorders and lower self-esteem. Kids will begin starving themselves because they never feel skinny enough. Kids will begin harming themselves because they never feel good enough. For example, if they got a B on something, they feel like they've gotten an F. Kids do these horrible things because they do not understand that it is okay to not get perfect grades. It is okay to not have a perfect body. It is okay to not have a perfect life, and yet they don't know this because they are not told this. They don't understand this. Kids are harming, starving, even killing themselves, and yet we ignore these occurrences. We think, well, it happens sometimes. We hardly even pay attention to it unless it affects our day-to-day lives, and this is not okay. We need to bring attention to this, talk about it, bring it more into our day-to-day lives. It is our job to talk about it. It is our job to make this a big deal. There needs to be more recognition about the pressure being put on the children of today's generation. There needs to be more attention brought to the awful topic of suicide. Talk about it. Talk about it in public places, social media, schools, anywhere. Just bring attention to it. Saying the smallest things, such as not being perfect is okay, can save a life. This is very important to me, and I believe it should be important to you as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice Gardner, and thank you as well to all of our students, parents, and our supportive teachers. Next up, coming from Irvine, California, a recent high school graduate delivering a speech called Use Me, Samori Chambers.
Pop the blood spray. I'm shaking, smoking, slowly stop. And one day, born hating but holy, praised you hop and make way. Holes gaping and gory goals is dropped. It's Sunday. My first kill, my first breath, the worst thrill, but the best. Can hurt wills, but not feel easy squills. My concept, please use me, abuse me, keep me and don't lose me. Seek me out and don't snooze me, so I can murder profusely. I could protect you, but no, you never squeeze me. Just blood splatters and brain matter. Are you feeling queasy? I've been alive for centuries. A killer's what I'm meant to be. I've never been a filler, but feelings steadily get to me. I'm friends with all the dealers, cause dealings was in my history. Can use me as a stiller, but stealing ain't really meant for me. I'm a straight killer, mobs Miller, they use me. Poppin', I shoot ya. I'm sorry, excuse me. They call me Medusa. You turn straight to stone. The cops, they say freeze, but you already known. Hate me and hate what I do. Fill me up with ammo, I use it to shoot. You pull on my trigger, can't help but let loose, and you call me a killer. But man, you kill too. You used to relish in my name and the pain that I cause. Now you wanna change, switch the game and the laws. I just stay the same while your aim falling off, and you people need to hang, shoot your brain for your flaws. I'm used by a lighter shade, it's an error, but I'm used by a darker one, and he a terror bearer. Blame the blame, it's the same as a game. Kids died, and I hear the politicians say my name, and they use these people as a catalyst. Battle this. White dude, use him like a strategist. Handle this. Middle Eastern, use him for immigration, the ban, and I couldn't help but overhear him say, this is our land. Go back a few decades, I wasn't an issue, and now I'm on the front page, I'm loving the lip too. You think it's my fault now? My dude, I'm just misused. With all these people blaming me, no, I need a tissue. I don't need to change, man, we gotta just fix you. I'm tired of the same game played by the same fools. We need to come together and not argue and pitch who was in the right or the wrong. There's dirt up on both shoes. And if you too hate-filled to sit down and continue, then drop your stuff and then come over here and I'll kiss you. I am a weapon. Destruction's my trait. My sole purpose is to kill, reap, and take. I pop, flash, smoke, and they call me great. But they just use me and use what I create, which is hate.
Thank you, Samori Chambers. Next, we welcome to the Soapbox Nation stage a rising high school senior from right here in Washington, D.C., Avery Williams.
I am the problem. I grew up with only one of my parents in my home, and of course that parent was my mother. I am the problem. I didn't see my father again until I already gotten used to him not being there. I am the problem. There weren't any positive adults around me who looked like me. I am a black boy, and I am the problem. It's not just me. African American young men all over the nation grew up with little to no people to look up to who look like them. And those who do have someone to look up to are more often than not being led in the wrong direction. The image a child develops of what an adult should be like significantly impacts their direction in life. If all a child sees when they look around are adults who are uneducated, unemployed, or even worse, just plain not there, they subconsciously place a note in the back of their mind telling themselves, these are my options. This is all I can be. And of course this problem affects people of color all over the nation. It causes a cycle to occur. Say, for example, a young boy grows up and the only thing that he knows about his father is that he is incarcerated. This means he has no male father figure in his home, which leads to him believing that it is okay for him to not be in the lives of his own children if he so chooses to have them. Years pass, and the only role models that he's ever had to look up to are those who seem to be successful in his area. And those people are in a specific market. Let's say drugs. More years pass, and eventually this young man gets imprisoned. And since he was never there in the lives of his own children, at least one of them will begin the cycle anew. This problem, however, spans further than just in the black community. It contributes to the racism and the negative perception of the black man in today's society. Those people coming from other cultures and other parts of the world don't get to see those few rare cases of a good black role model. From their frame of reference, the only good black man is one who entertains, the ones that they see on their TV shows or that they watch in their sports games or the ones that they listen to in their music. And some people won't even attest to the fact that this is an issue because not everybody suffers from it. However, the problem here is not the effects of a lack of role models. It's the fact that there aren't any. In fact, 72% of black children are raised in single-parent households. The national average is 25. In 2008, 11% of black males had a bachelor's degree, while only half of the 4.8 million who went to college managed to finish. So many of us are unable to even picture what a college graduate looks like, and you expect us to become one? So what's the solution to this? Simply put, you are. You're the solution. I'm the solution. We are the solution. We need to be the role models for these young boys, and if we can't do that, then we need to support those that can. There are tons of programs all over the nation working to solve this problem. The tools are there and we are not using them. One of which is located right here in Washington, D.C. at Charles R. Drew Elementary School, known as Life Pieces to Masterpieces, a program that understands the cycle and how to prevent it. LPTM does this effectively by taking young men from the young age of 3 and being in their lives all the way up until they are 25 years of age. The way that the program is set up is the children come to the program every day after school, Monday through Friday, all the way up until they are in middle school, at which point they become eligible to become a junior mentor at said program while also moving on to the second part of the program, which takes place every Saturday. Now you have the young man in a positive environment for 6 days a week, almost every week, while also getting the experience of becoming a positive influence in the lives of hundreds of children who look just like him. I, for one, can attest to the fact that it works, because I've been with the program since my 8th grade year. And every day after school, I go to be a part of that support system for any young boy who needs it. I am a black boy who needed a role model. I am a black boy who was mentored. I am a black boy who is a mentor. Yes, I am the problem. And yet, I'm also the solution. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Avery Williams. Next up to the Soapbox Nation stage, a recent high school graduate from Aurora, Illinois, Chris Hernandez.
Good evening. Before I like to start, I'd just like to give a round of applause to everybody that presented their speeches before me, and they did a terrific job. All right, now it's my turn. So I'd like to start with a personal story. My parents split up when I was 3, and while it wasn't an amicable one, it was one that I had to deal with. I lived with my mother and 2 sisters in a tiny apartment in a predominantly Latino neighborhood not far off from the Chicago area. It was a rough place, but it was a place that I could at least call home. We, like most families in the area, struggled financially to make ends meet, but to our landlord, that didn't mean much. My mom used to joke that he liked to change the price of rent about as much as he liked to change clothes. One day, we came back from a trip to the store to find an eviction letter on our apartment door. As a matter of fact, a lot of other families had an eviction letter on their apartment doors too. Now, I didn't know much about our situation, and I had no idea what the word eviction meant. My mom had a real tough time breaking it down to me. So she begged and pleaded with the landlord to let us stay until she could come up with the money, but the landlord refused. And like that, a young mother who hasn't even reached the age of 30 yet with 3 kids to support were out on the streets. I say this to say that no child should ever have to be out on the streets, and they shouldn't have to see their parents beg strangers. I remember seeing my mom cry and beg and pray for something better to come along, and all I could do was just sit there and watch. Fortunately, we had a family friend who was gracious enough to let us stay with them until we could come up with enough money to pay for an apartment on our own. And fortunately, we were able to find an apartment on the west side of town. We were lucky, but I can't say the same for some of my friends and former neighbors. See, it turns out that the city was developing their urban renewal process, at least that's how they put it, to renovate and rejuvenate underdeveloped urban areas in the city. See, they promised to take old abandoned buildings and warehouses and replace them with corporate businesses like McDonald's and Starbucks to generate money into the economy. They promised to clean up city parks and community gardens so that the little kids could come out and play once in a while instead of having to deal with violence and crime and drugs. And they promised to get rid of crime and theft in the streets by increasing police supervision in the area. I mean, it sounds nice. And I surely would have loved to and enjoyed all that if I was still living there, but you see, there's a catch. See, as neighborhoods are being built up, cost of living in these areas also increases dramatically. When as recent as in Chicago, for example, in 2015, the rents for two-bedroom apartments increased by 5.2% a year since 2012. That amounts to over 20% in just 4 years. A lot of low-income and working-class families, they can't afford to pay such an increase in such a short amount of time. So it leaves these families with little choice but to either move to a poor area or be displaced from their own apartments, leaving them homeless. And in America, more than 500,000 people are homeless. A quarter of them are children. Now, I don't know if any of you have children, but I know you've all been children once. Now, put yourself in that situation. Could you imagine what life would be like if you didn't know where you were going to be sleeping in by the end of the night? If you didn't have a bed to sleep in, you didn't have a roof over your head, you didn't have a kitchen to go to eat your food. It's not an easy thing to think about, but it's a real thing that's happening. It's happening a lot in a lot of urban areas, especially in a lot of cities like Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, Philadelphia, even here in Washington, D.C. I want to talk about affordable housing and how that can help alleviate the problem of homelessness in this country. The reason why there's so many homeless people is because there is a lack of affordable housing. And so I suggest that we work towards making more of these types of housing available for a lot of low-income and working-class families who are dealing with an increase in rent and aren't able to afford to live in these areas anymore. Again, I suggest please put yourself in this situation and think of children. These people, especially these children, are the least hurt in society because they don't have much money, they don't have much power, they don't have much influence, they don't have much of anything. All they have is their voice, and often their voices are drowned out by all the noise. Just imagine a 3-year-old child right now who doesn't have much, doesn't have a lot. Boy, who knows, maybe 15 years from now he could be standing here up on this stage and talking to a lot of, in front of all you. I'd like to leave this speech with a quote that I had heard once before, saying, "An injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere." I believe that's true in all situations, and that we must use our voices and use our actions to reflect a more positive world that we want to live in and help those who can't help themselves. Thank you and have a good day.
Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Hernandez. Next up on the Soapbox Nation stage, a rising sophomore from right here in Washington, D.C., Ann Twinjay.
You're pretty for a black girl. A sentence that could quickly wipe the smile off your face. This statement might sound acceptable at first, since it is structured as a compliment. You're pretty, the first part reads, for a black girl. However, what does it mean for a dark-complexioned black girl? Does the color of my skin not fit to the standards of beauty? Does it differentiate me so much that it causes surprise? The fact that my skin tone can change whether I am regarded as pretty or not is quite disturbing. The definition for colorism is prejudice or discrimination against individuals with a dark skin tone. Colorism in the US dates back to the days of slavery, when slave owners would give preferential treatment to fair-toned slaves, while darker-toned slaves would be toiled to work outside in the fields. Even after the end of segregation, fair-toned women and men were granted easier access to education as well as job opportunities. Are colorism and racism the same thing? No. Colorism is a step further into racism. It isn't about white versus black. Colorism affects everyone, no group excluded. Colorism can be described as a war between light and dark complexioned women and men. While light or fair tone women are viewed as natural, smart, and more feminine, darker tone women are viewed as more aggressive, too hard, and sometimes even masculine. Sadly, colorism is a part of the black community. There was a time where several tests were conducted to determine whether you could join sororities or not. One of these tests, the brown paper bag test, where you would be compared to a brown paper bag. If you were lighter toned than the bag, you were in. If you were darker, you were out. Another one of these tests, the pencil test, where they would use a pencil to decide whether your hair was straight enough for the pencil to easily slide through. Luckily, these don't take place anymore. The ideal beauty standards. We see it on social media, in magazines, movies, and advertisements. Everywhere, fair-toned women and men are shown as attractive and smart and are often given the roles of the good characters, while darker tones play the roles of the negative characters. Light equals smart and perfect. Some body lotions even go as far as to read, normal to dark skin. Normal to dark skin. Skin bleaching is a $10 billion industry. $10 billion. Imagine how many people, men, women, are buying these products. $10 billion. To become as what society sees as perfect and smart. A few weeks back, I saw a comparison from someone that I knew. He compared dark-toned women to burnt chicken and lighter-toned women to raw chicken. To what point does a beautiful dark woman look burnt? This just proves that colorism is learned. It is something that we see very early in our lifetime, and it sticks with us. That is how they want you to see the world, but you shouldn't. We can't just blame colorism on the industry, as we are part of it. We are its customers. Change starts from within. Something that is learned can be unlearned, and this should be unlearned. Why? Because it is not true. Every skin tone is beautiful. You can't say that while practicing colorism. You can't stand there, minimize dark-toned women, and say that you aren't prejudiced or that you don't see color. Because the issue is not seeing color. The problem is how it's treated. So let's start portraying all tones as equal and with as much love, because that is what they deserve. I hope that you can go out seeing the world differently, with a more opened eyes and a more attentive mind than before. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you from DC's own Ann Chwinjae. Next up to the Soapbox Nation stage, a rising senior from Tucson, Arizona, Weesie Sagarin.
My stepdad's name is Jerry. Jerry loves superhero movies more than anything. He serenades our dogs with songs he composes for them. He spends a lot of time getting ready in front of the mirror. Sometimes he takes me and my friends out to go get donuts. But everything he does here is illegal, because his name isn't actually Jerry. He just lets us call him that. It's Gerardo. To the men in the white cars that circle our small barrio neighborhood, Jerry is not my stepdad. He is an alien. I have to agree sometimes. I mean, he eats his PB&Js in milk and his pancakes with tortillas. But I don't think the uniformed men think that Jerry is an alien the way that I do. Fox News promotes the idea that Jerry is a violent criminal, but according to a recent New York Times study, immigrants are less than half as likely as American citizens to commit crimes. I say that Jerry would never harm a mouse, and I mean that quite literally, because he's always had a soft spot for my pet rodents. The government says that the police are here to protect us, but my heart stops when a police car passes, because I know what that could mean. It happens just like that. One day, Jerry's bandmate is borrowing my drums for an upcoming gig, and the next day he's thrown into the back of a Border Patrol car, with not even a chance to say goodbye. This reality is even more terrifying for children. More than 70,000 immigrant parents are deported per year, leaving hundreds of thousands of children suffering from financial hardship and emotional trauma. I wonder if the politicians who think that dark hair and dark skin and violence is a package deal would feel the same way if they took 1 minute just to listen. Or how they would feel if they had also been born into a country where in order to provide for their family, they had to leave them, missing all the birthday parties, the last goodbyes, and the family gatherings. I wonder if it would change their minds if they knew that Jerry's home state of Chiapas is the poorest state in all of Mexico, with the lowest life expectancy rate. Each immigrant has a unique and powerful story, and we need to start listening to them. So today I'm sharing the story of just one person, one out of the estimated 11 million undocumented immigrants living in the US today. My stepdad's name is Gerardo. I hope you will remember his story.
Thank you, Weetzie. And ladies and gentlemen, we are about to introduce our final Soapbox Nation speaker for the evening from Akron, Ohio, Chica Nkwacha.
Crack. That's the sound of the whip as it pierces through his body, ripping through all the layers of his skin. 1, someone yells. 38 more to go. The power of the second strike hits, and now he's unconscious. A voice in the back whispers, "They found out Lil John could read and write. He's getting 39. 39? Massa gonna kill him. 39 because he can read and write? Yes, 39 lashes because a lil Negro boy can read and write. 39 lashes for a colored man who could read and write. See, this was a typical punishment for a slave who was found to be literate. The white man once put these prohibitions on slaves because he knew that education was powerful and contagious. He knew that knowledge was the gateway to freedom, and he knew that literacy was capable of bringing about change in such a corrupt time. But the real question is the white man still doing that today? Well, believe it or not, racial disparities still live within our school system. Today's black youth are disadvantaged. The school system does not give them a fair and sufficient education, does not grant them a chance. You see, the Schott Foundation reports that the black male graduation rate of 2013 was, wait for it, 59%. So who's to blame? Well, some may say it's the black kids themselves. After all, they're lazy, demanding, violent, and ungrateful. They don't even care about education, but society fails to realize the dirty truth about our schools. See, society calls a black child lazy, but when he seeks an education, he faces the struggle of having to share a textbook with 4 other students because the government won't fund his school. Or society calls a black child violent, but when he seeks an education, he faces the burden of being greeted by metal detectors and security guards in his school that deem him the criminal he isn't. Or society calls a black child demanding, but when he seeks an education, he's angered by the fact that he finds no representation in his history textbook. Or good old society calls a black child ungrateful, but what does this black child have to be grateful for when his school has no air conditioning, rats from the hallways, and there are curtains for bathroom stall doors. But maybe society is right. After all, is it now our own black community that shames our black friends who carry a degree and therefore are labeled as acting white? Or is it not our own black parents who fail to motivate their child academically and then be involved in their school lives? Or is it not our own black men who neglect the opportunities of raising up lost black youth and then posing as much needed father figures? So again, I ask you, who's to blame? You see, it's obvious our schools need help, and it's time we start caring for all children. It's time we stop learning about Emily Dickinson and start learning about Maya Angelou. It's time we stop learning about the triumphs of the British empires and start learning about the victories of the Songhai Kingdom. As a matter of fact, raise your hand if you know about the Songhai Kingdom. I'll wait. Okay, just 3 people? Well, that's a shame. You see, but the black community must help itself too. Our ancestors, great heroes of the past, left behind a legacy. And now that the torch has been passed on to us, we refuse to carry it. It's time the black community realizes that a black man with a degree to his name is actually more dangerous than a black man with a Glock 19 in his hand. It's time the black community realizes that a wise man once said, if you want to hide something from a colored man, put it in a book. And yes, it's sad, but it's true. It's time the black community raises up leaders that don't just shoot hoops, sling drugs, or spit rhymes, but actually ignite change. So the next time you think about taking education for granted, just remember that it comes at a cost. Because some of our ancestors, they weren't just whipped once, they weren't just whipped twice, and they sure weren't just whipped 3 times. They were whipped 39 times, and I repeat, they were whipped 39 times so that some of us could have a seat in the classroom. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you to Chica and Quach and to all of our Soapbox Nation winners.
Hi everyone, my name's Zach. I have the privilege of working at the Facebook education team. And can we give everyone another round of applause, please? Thank you. Come on out here, guys. We're strongest as a country when we feel the opportunity to share our truths. And we're also strongest as a country when we have a community of people willing to listen to each other's truths. And so thank you to all of you for being willing to share your truths today, and for all of you for coming out to listen. Facebook is privileged to have this opportunity to support these remarkable young leaders and the 5,000 young people who participated in the Soapbox Nation Challenge. And we're looking forward to continuing to support each of these young leaders on their journey as they continue to build community and bring the world closer together. It really was a privilege, and I think each of us here today is looking forward to following you on your journey, because not only are you going to stand up and have a voice, but you're going to make a real difference in your community. So thank you for that, and thank you to the MICFA Challenge for running an incredible program. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight.